Week 16 of the fantasy football season. Here's the top 15 tight ends. I'm ranking this week number 1, Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals. So this week, a great matchup with the Carolina Panthers. We know their defense can't stop anyone. And McBride, he's the number 1 option in this passing game for Kyler Murray and this Arizona Cardinal offense. It wouldn't be surprising to me if he has 80, 90 yards and finds the end zone. Number 2, Brock Bowers of the Vegas Raiders. So last week, one of the worst games for the rookie Bowers. He's having a monster season. He's going to break pretty much every rookie record at the tight end position. And the good news for him, he gets Aiden O'Connell back in the lineup this week, where Desmond Ridder started last week, and we know Ridder, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. So this week with a good matchup versus Jacksonville, give up tons of points this season. And now with Aiden O'Connell most likely back in the lineup, Brock Bowers, I believe, bounces back and has a good ball game. Number 3, George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. So this week, a good matchup with the Miami Dolphins. Their defense all season long has had trouble stopping people. And another tight end who's the number 1 option in the passing game. Deebo Samuel hasn't done much. Jawan Jennings, no doubt about it. He's been good this season. But George Kittle, he's been a matchup problem. And when healthy, he's always been a top 5 tight end for multiple seasons. Number 4, Jonnu Smith, staying in the same game with the Miami Dolphins. Now the number 2 target in the passing game for this Miami Dolphin team. Him and Tua hitting on quick hitting plays, and the yard after catch ability has been great this season for Jonnu Smith. So this week in a matchup versus the 49ers, I think Jonnu Smith, he could go out there once again, and it wouldn't be surprising if he puts up his similar numbers, 70, 80 yards and a touchdown, because it just seems like weekly now he's finding the end zone as Jonnu Smith, and he's a big target. And pretty much everywhere he's been throughout his career, he's been productive. Jonnu Smith, but nothing like he has this season with the big year. Number 5, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. So Mark Andrews out of the gate, first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, he definitely wasn't 100% healthy, and he was on a snap count. But the last two and a half months, he's turned the season around as Mark Andrews, and it seems like weekly he's finding the end zone for fantasy owners in this Baltimore Raven team. So this week, not a great matchup versus the Steelers, but he obviously has a great track record versus Steelers team, being in the same division with them throughout his long NFL career. So this week, I think it's going to be a low-scoring type of game, grinded out. But I still believe Mark Andrews could go out there and, let's say, get 50, 60 yards and possibly find the end zone. Number 6, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Travis Kelce, it's been an up-and-down season. I know he has over 75 catches on the year, but the big impact games just really haven't been there, few and far between this season. And now Kelce's been the number 1 option in this passing game ever since Rashee Rice went down in week 4. And like I said, the elite numbers haven't been there. Maybe Father Time is catching up to Travis Kelce, where he's 35 years old, and we know players start to decline at that age, even though it wouldn't surprise me in the playoffs if he goes off and this Chiefs team wins another Super Bowl. But this week, a decent matchup versus the Houston Texans. Their defense, middle of the pack. And the other thing is, Patrick Mahomes is going to play in this game. He practiced fully, which obviously is a great sign. And Mahomes, he just doesn't miss games unless he obviously has a major injury where there's nothing he could do about it. Number 7, Sam Laporta of the Detroit Lions. So Sam Laporta finally had a breakout game last week, even though they had no choice but to drop back and throw that football the remainder of the game after they were down 14-0 to start it. So Laporta, he's definitely been a bust, obviously, season considering where he went in fantasy drafts. But last week, 7 catches, 111 yards. He had a big game. He's on a high-powered offense with one of the more accurate quarterbacks in the league in Jared Goff. And this week of the Chicago Bears, where their defense versus the tight end has been great this season, I think Laporta once again could go out there and have a good game. Number 8, TJ Hawkinson of the Minnesota Vikings. Last week, he had a decent ball game, 10.2 fantasy points in PPR leagues. And TJ Hawkinson, I don't believe he's 100% healthy for this Minnesota Viking team, and he's fallen down the pecking order a little bit behind Jordan Addison as the 3rd option in the passing game, but he's still a big target tight end. Him and Sam Darnold are working on rapport, where, like I said, Hawkinson, he missed the first 3 months of the season pretty much, and he's working his way back into shape. So this week in an okay matchup with the Seattle Seahawks, I think Hawkinson could put up serviceable numbers once again. Number 9, Brenton Strange of the Jacksonville Jaguars. One of the hot waiver wire pickups is Brenton Strange. If you were streaming tight ends, or if you had a David Njoku or an injury to Evan Ingram, you got Strange most likely on your roster. So this week, a good matchup at the Vegas Raiders. Last week, he was peppered with targets, 11 catches, 73 yards. And he's the number 2 option easily in this passing game behind Brian Thomas Jr., where obviously Christian Kirk out for the season, Gabe Davis, Evan Ingram out for the season. And this team, they've been trailing early and often whole lot this year here is this Jacksonville Jaguar team. Even though this week at Vegas, I think this is going to be a tight game. And also, this is a ball game to see who's going to come out with a higher pick, whoever loses. Number 10, Pat Freiermuth of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So him and Russell Wilson, they've been locked in. Freiermuth early in the year, when Justin Fields was the quarterback, he really wasn't putting up numbers. But now weekly, it seems like he's either getting 50, 60 yards or finding the end zone, one or the other. And last week, he found the end zone once again. We'll see if George Pickens returns to this game, which actually can help Freiermuth, where teams obviously won't have too much coverage going Freiermuth's way, where they're going to have to worry with Pickens, and he gets that one-on-one coverage or that zone coverage is Freiermuth if Pickens returns in this game. But either way, he's been producing with Russell Wilson at quarterback, and this week I think it's an okay matchup at Baltimore, especially if they might have to be chasing points. Number 11, David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. And now Njoku, his numbers are definitely going to take a hit, and we'll see if he plays in this game, but they're hopeful he returns from the hamstring injury after missing last week's ball game versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And Njoku, one of the athletic tight ends in the league, no doubt about it. But now with Dorian Thompson-Robinson in their quarterback, his numbers are going to take a hit, I believe. At least Jameis Winston had the gunslinger mentality, was getting that football down the field. They were making plays, is this Cleveland Brown team. But now this whole offense, in my opinion, for fantasy football, takes a hit. Maybe in real life, obviously, the turnovers won't be a big issue, but production for players will be an issue. But this week at Cincinnati, if he does play Njoku, I still believe he could go out there and be a serviceable option. 12, Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. And most likely a game they're going to be chasing points early and often is this New England Patriot team, where Buffalo, we've seen the offense the last 2 weeks really take it to another level. 42 points at the Rams in week 14, and then last week, week 15, 48 points at the Lions. So, like I said, New England's going to be chasing points early and often. Hunter Henry, arguably the number one option in this passing game. Him or Demario Douglas, where he'll just work his way on targets and into production this week. 13, staying in the same game, Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. So Kincaid, he returned from injury last week, and I know it wasn't a great game for Kincaid, but in my opinion, he's the number 2 option in this passing game behind Khalil Shakir. So Kincaid had some nice games early on in the season. Last week, he returned with a pretty decent game, 4 catches, 53 yards on 7 targets. And this week, like I said, a good matchup versus New England, a defense that can't stop anyone. And we saw it the last couple weeks versus defenses that were better than New England. Buffalo go out there and put up over 40 points. So we'll see if Kincaid has another decent game this week. 14, Tucker Kraft of the Green Bay Packers. So every other week, it seems like Kraft has a good game. Last week was a quiet ball game for him, 2 catches, 34 yards in that one. But this week, a good matchup versus New Orleans Saints Monday night coming to town. Their defense is decimated. They have had trouble stopping tight ends this season. And I think Tucker Kraft, he could go out there and be a good option for fantasy owners, where him and Jordan Love have been locked in the majority of the season. He's a good yard after catch tight end, and he's arguably the number 2 target in this offense behind Jaden Reed and pretty much Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. Those guys are mixed in as well. On the 15th and final tight end, I'm ranking Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. His numbers are definitely taking a hit, where he had a concussion a few weeks ago, and with Cooper Rush in their quarterback as well, the numbers have gone down. This week, a decent matchup versus Tampa Bay, where their defense isn't all that great. And I think Jake Ferguson has one of his better games this week, where Dallas is most likely going to be trailing early and often and have no choice but to throw the football 40, 45 times, even though it's not the recipe for success for the Cowboys, just versus a good Tampa offense, where I could see them getting off to a 10, 14-point lead. The Cowboys have to play catch-up, and obviously that hasn't been their game with Cooper Rush at quarterback, where they like controlling the tempo and running the football. But this week, I think we're going to see more throw attempts, and that's where Jake Ferguson comes into play and possibly has a solid ball game. So that's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking for Week 16 of the fantasy football season.